All right, let's dive straight into this explainer. Today, we're taking a really structured, step-by-step look at a framework that is specifically designed to dismantle those exhausting, heavy feelings of unworthiness that hold so many of us back. Look, if you've ever felt like you're just faking it or waiting for someone to finally expose you, the source material we're unpacking today is absolutely for you. We're going to break down the mechanics of why we feel this way, and then, more importantly, we're going to rebuild a completely new framework.
So let me ask you, have you been holding trials in your chest? I know that's a heavy question, but I want to speak directly to those quiet fears you might be carrying around. The source material describes this crazy phenomenon where a voice inside you, and it's a voice that sounds incredibly reasonable, by the way, has built a literal courtroom inside your mind. And day after day, season after season, it holds trials. The catch? You are always the defendant. There's no defense attorney coming to save you, no judge is ever going to dismiss the case, and the verdict is always the exact same. You are not enough. Well, it is time to permanently close that courtroom.
And really, that brings us to the core issue here, imposter syndrome. Just to put this into perspective, research shows that up to 82% of people experience this, and that includes top executives and leaders. But our source defines us in a really fascinating way. It's not just some personal flaw or a quirky psychological trait. It is an ancient lie. It's literally a trap designed to convince you that you're just pretending, that your seat at the table is completely provisional, and that you do not belong here. The source even points out that historically significant figures were hunted by this exact same lie. It's like this script that gets read to chosen people in every single generation, just to keep them small and keep their vital work undone.
Now, what's really fascinating is how we often confuse the imposter's voice with actual humility. The imposter's voice loves to disguise itself as wisdom, right? It demands endless interrogation and this really cruel self-assessment. It even disguises itself as humility by telling you, oh, don't put yourself forward, stay in the background. But actually, scratch that. That's not humility. That is just anxiety dressed up in spiritual clothing. True humility isn't about constant self-interrogation. It's simply the willingness to do the work without making the work all about you. Because think about it, a soul that's running a constant internal courtroom isn't humble. It's entirely self-absorbed.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to physically do something with me right now. Wherever you are, just take a deep breath, in through your nose and out through your mouth. Drop your shoulders. I want you to literally notice that physical relief. You are still here. Your seat is still yours. You didn't have to earn the right to exist, which means you cannot lose it. Embracing the truth actually feels like a physical dropping of all that heavy, endless questioning.
All right, let's move into Section 1, the Blueprint of You, where we explore the concept of eternal intent. The source offers this quote that completely, and I mean completely, reframes the way we see ourselves. You were not an accident. You were a decision. You weren't some random guess. You aren't just a placeholder keeping the seat warm while the real person gets prepared. Your existence is the direct result of a deliberate, eternal choice.
And this brings us to a massive paradigm shift. It's the difference between viewing yourself as a random accident, just a small interchangeable part placed by a universe that basically shrugged, versus seeing yourself as precision engineered. A master engineer doesn't just throw random materials together. They choose specific components for specific properties. Your exact mix of sensitivity and toughness is exactly what your assignment requires. Even those contradictions you've probably apologized for your entire life, like being fierce yet tender or restless yet patient, they aren't mistakes. They are literal load-bearing cross braces, engineered to keep your structure standing under immense pressure.
Which brings us to Section 2, Reframing Scars, and how they act as your raw material.
We've all looked back at our past mistakes and wounds and adopted what's called a damage mindset. It's that voice saying, why did this happen to me? It views scars purely as brokenness. But this new framework introduces a strategic mindset. What did this build in me? Now, it doesn't deny the pain at all, but it asks a fundamentally different question. Your past wasn't given to you as a disqualifier, it was given to you as raw material. Your scars are not damage. They are actually the most precise calibration you've ever undergone for a very specific task. So let's break down exactly what that calibration creates. It builds what the source calls the authority of the integrated scar. First off, this kind of authority is earned only through passage. You literally cannot study it in a textbook. Second, it produces a specific recognizable frequency. People who've walked through darkness, they can recognize each other across a crowded room without saying a single word. Third, it provides a deep capacity that an unscarred soul just completely lacks. And finally, it connects you to this wide, quiet community of fellow survivors. Your history is the very thing that qualifies you.
Moving on to Section 3,
the architecture of silence, also known as the waiting room.
You know, when you're in it, it is so easy to view silence as a punishment. You assume you've been overlooked, forgotten, or that you're just totally invisible. You might even assume your calling just passed you by completely. But the Source flips this on its head, reframing silence as preparation. That agonizing silence? It was actually a hidden construction site. It was high-intensity capacity building. Think about it. If you had been handed your biggest assignment before your character was fully forged, it would have destroyed you. Silence wasn't the absence of listening, it was the depth of listening. It was protection.
So what exactly did that hidden construction site build while you were waiting? It forged the invisible gifts of the waiting room. It built unbreakable trust through that small, unglamorous repetition of just showing up every single day. It taught you what's called a long pace, a healthy relationship with time that prevents burnout. It protected you from the wrong premature assignments that would have been absolute disasters. And it gave you incredibly sharp discernment about who to actually trust, simply by showing you who stayed and who left when things went dark. Your immense capacity for impact was built in the exact absence of impact.
And that brings us to our final section, Section 4, Stepping into the Work and Walking Forward. Okay, it is time to completely abandon the exhausting habit of seeking permission. We've got to stop waiting for external validation or more credentials or some special VIP invitation. The world simply cannot measure what you were chosen for. Instead, we have to embrace a settled identity. You aren't blindly inventing some uncertain future. You are walking into a prepared future. You're transitioning from being someone who desperately seeks answers to being a bearer of solutions for other people. Your placement is a fact, and you are already authorized to be there.
So how do we practically do this? The Source outlines 3 really simple mechanics. Step 1, acknowledge the fear at the gate. Fear isn't a sign you're doing the wrong thing, it's literally just the required price of admission for stepping into change. Step 2, stop the endless debate and auditing. That imposter voice wants you debating because as long as you're debating, you aren't doing. Step 3, take the first small, imperfect step. You don't need to see the next 10 steps, just the next one. Doing it imperfectly is still doing it.
Because ultimately, we are faced with a pretty stark choice between 2 types of pain. We can either choose the dull, chronic pain of having done nothing across an entire lifetime, or we can choose the sharp, present pain of doing something hard right now. Withholding what you carry isn't the safe option, it's actually the most expensive option. The Source strongly urges us to trade that lifelong regret of playing it safe for the temporary, sharp discomfort of finally taking action. The sharp pain passes, but the dull pain compounds. Choose the sharp pain. And as you get ready to take that step, I really want you to hold on to this brilliant insight from the author. Lies hunt the called. If that imposter voice suddenly flares up, realize what it actually means. The darkness doesn't waste its energy on souls who aren't doing anything. The intense, deafening volume of that imposter voice inside you is actually the strongest proof that you're dangerously close to your true assignment. I mean, it wouldn't be working so incredibly hard to convince you that you don't belong if you didn't belong.
So this leaves us with one incredibly provocative question. Will you walk forward into the love story that was prepared for you? You might have spent your whole life thinking of your calling as this heavy, exhausting burden or job, but the Source reframes this entire assignment as a beautiful love story meant to serve others. Love built you, and other souls are going to receive love through those integrated scars you carry. The preparation is over. The capacity is built. Your seat is absolutely yours. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and I truly hope this provided the clarity you need to finally walk forward.